You've been taught your whole life that a real man chases, that bleeding for love is honorable, that proving your worth means winning her heart, that craving her affection is just part of being human. But no one told you this, that the whole story was designed to break you, that the fantasy was a trap, that every step you took trying to earn her was one step away from yourself, and you paid the price with your time, your pride, your soul. Let's go back. Diogenes of Sinope, yeah, that crazy philosopher who slept in a barrel and walked barefoot through the streets of Athens. He didn't write long essays about morality or the stars. He mocked them. While others chased status and structure, he chased truth. Ugly, raw, uncomfortable truth. Diogenes once walked through Athens holding a lantern in the daylight, saying he was searching for an honest man. You think that was a joke? It wasn't. It was a mirror, a challenge, a spotlight on the masks we wear. He said, a wise man should carry his happiness within himself. But you made your happiness dependent on her smile, her validation, her presence. And just like that, you handed over your self-worth to someone who never asked for it. You think you're chasing her out of love? No, my friend, you're chasing her out of absence, out of fear, out of that gnawing emptiness that you hope her attention will fill. Diogenes would have laughed in your face, and he literally did once when he saw a young man blush at a pretty woman. He shouted, "Don't be ashamed. It's not your fault, it's nature's, for making such creatures irresistible to fools." You call it romance. He called it weakness. You think chasing makes you noble. He saw it as perfume-scented desperation. He didn't just say this stuff, he lived it. He peed in public. He pleasured himself in the marketplace. When people gasped, he said, "If only rubbing my stomach cured hunger, too." It wasn't shame he lacked, it was illusion. He wanted to tear the shame off of you, the same shame you carry like a leash thinking it's decorum. You play the gentleman because you think it gets you picked. You hide your real desires to seem respectable. You don't master your impulses, you bury them to fit into her box. You wear a mask. Diogenes burned masks. You build pedestals. He smashed them. You walk into a room looking for beauty. He walked in scanning for fools, and usually found them. "I threw away my cup," he once said, "when I saw a child drinking with his hands." He stripped his life down to the bone. And you decorate your cage. You're obsessed with silk when you haven't even mastered steel. Understand this. Diogenes wasn't against women. He was against illusions. And the biggest illusion a man buys into is this, that a woman's love will redeem him. He said he has the most who is content with the least, but you're never content. You scroll. You swipe. You wait for a message like it's morphine. You live haunted by the ghosts of girls who never loved you, or worse, ones who did until you gave too much and they lost interest. They told you to chase, to prove yourself, to win her. But Diogenes didn't chase. He stood still and let the truth shame the world. When Alexander the Great, the most powerful man on earth, asked Diogenes, "What can I do for you?" Diogenes didn't bow, didn't smile, didn't flatter. He looked up and said, "Yes, stand out of my sunlight." That's power. That's freedom. That's what it looks like when a man needs nothing. But you chase women like they're sunlight. You orbit around them like a cold planet desperate for warmth. You adjust your mood, your voice, your plans just to fit in their orbit. And then you call it love. But Diogenes would call it what it is, slavery. Not because she enslaved you, but because you walked into the chains yourself, smiling, holding a bouquet. Diogenes said, "The most beautiful woman in the world is nothing without character, and character is nothing without truth." And here's your truth. Most of what you call love is just your fear of being alone dressed up in poetry. Most of what you give isn't generosity, it's negotiation. You offer your time, your effort, your dreams in exchange for her reflection of your worth. That's not love. That's a transaction, in disguise. And when it fails, when she stops replying, when her love fades the more you show yours, you're crushed. But it's not because you lost her. It's because you lost the one mirror that made you feel like a man. Diogenes didn't need a mirror. He faced the world bare. No perfume, no sugarcoating, no mask on decay. He called out lies until the world either laughed or got angry, because nothing makes people more furious than being forced to see clearly. So I'm not here to preach, not here to judge. I'm here to ask you, man to man, when will you stop chasing what will never save you? When will you stop calling obedience love? When will you stop calling sacrifice connection, self-erasure romance? The woman you chase, she isn't your enemy, but your illusion of her, that is. You call it loyalty, but it's dependency. You think it's passion, but it's addiction. You keep saying she's different, that this one gets you, that this one sees you. But Diogenes said, it is the privilege of the gods to want nothing, and of godlike men to want little. So tell me, what kind of godlike man panics over a woman who leaves him on red? You weren't born to chase. You were built to build. But someone, somewhere, tricked you, made you believe your value comes from being chosen. And now here you are, swiping apps like a beggar, smiling through rejection like a trained clown, swallowing your pride like it's breakfast. You call it dating. Diogenes would have called it decay.
Diogenes didn't play games. He didn't strategize to win favor. He didn't wait around for a smile or an invite. He walked barefoot through the filth. He mocked the rich to their faces. He ate scraps like a wild dog in the city square. And yet, when the most powerful man on the planet stood before him, he wasn't intimidated. Because Diogenes had nothing to lose. And a man with nothing to lose can't be controlled. But you? You give her everything before she even asks. You give her your time, your energy, your vulnerability. And when she doesn't return the same, you lose sleep. You question yourself. You rearrange your entire life around the possibility of being chosen. You say, it's just romance. But Diogenes would bark like a dog at you, literally, and call it what it is. Submission. Here's the part that stings. She doesn't respect it. Not because she's heartless, but because instinctively she knows what Diogenes knew. Anything that chases loses value. What runs after something doesn't possess it. It's possessed by it. And women, consciously or not, are not drawn to men who beg. They're drawn to men who don't have to. They don't want sacrifice, they want sovereignty. But your eagerness, your willingness to contort yourself, to shrink yourself just to be palatable, it makes you invisible. She doesn't see love in your eyes. She sees desperation. And eventually she will leave. Not because she's cruel, but because instinct or boredom or biology will pull her away. And you'll feel gutted. But pause. Ask yourself, did I love her? Or did I love who I got to be when she was around? Did I love her soul? Or the way her presence hid my emptiness? Diogenes would say, I'm looking for a man. Not just a male. A man. A soul forged by fire, not by compliments. A man who can stand naked under the sky and feel whole. Not a boy who needs a woman's gaze to feel alive. That realization that it was never really about her hurts the most. You weren't in love with her. You were in love with the way she made you feel about you. And when she walks away, your identity crumbles. Not because she was your everything, but because she was the only thing reflecting back your worth. So what do? You go searching again, looking for another goddess to validate you, another mirror with eyelashes, another story to lose yourself in. Because deep down, you never learned how to feel like a man without her. That's the real tragedy. You were taught how to conquer mountains, but not how to conquer your mind. Taught to chase riches, but not to seek wisdom. Taught to attract women, but never to question why. And when you finally pause long enough to ask why, you realize your whole life has been one long, desperate chase. You chased girls who didn't want you, girls who barely tolerated you, girls who loved the version of you that served them, not the real you. And you thought that was normal, expected, manly. But Diogenes didn't. He thought it was pitiful. He said, "Other dogs bite their enemies. I bite my friends to save them. So let me bite you now. Not to hurt you, but to wake you up. Stop chasing what runs. Stop bleeding out your soul for scraps. Stop calling it love when it's really just the fear of being alone. A man who knows his worth doesn't beg. He doesn't plead. He doesn't perform. He chooses. He builds. He walks. And if she wants to walk with him, great. If not, he keeps walking." That was Diogenes. That can be you, but only if you're willing to wake up, to unlearn everything you were taught about what makes you worthy. Because here's the ugly truth. The man who chases women is not noble. He is not brave. He is not romantic. He is lost. And no woman, no matter how beautiful, smart, or kind, will ever lead him back to himself. But you've convinced yourself that this is just part of being a man. The hunger, the ache, the chase. You watch movies that glorify it. You hear songs that turn heartbreak into a badge of honor. You think suffering for love is what gives your life meaning. You think getting rejected but still trying makes you courageous, passionate, real. But Diogenes would have spat on that idea literally. He once stood in front of a statue and begged it for alms. When asked why, he said, "I'm getting used to being refused." That was his way of laughing at the absurdity, the stupidity of begging, whether for money or for a woman's affection. And now here you are, a modern man with access to knowledge, freedom, and tools Diogenes could only dream of. And yet, you beg. Not for bread, but for validation. You call her over and over after she ghosts you. You write long, heartfelt messages that get ignored. You twist your words to sound just right, not too strong, not too soft, just enough to be liked. You live in your own mind's courtroom, constantly defending yourself against invisible accusations, hoping, always hoping that she will see you, pick you, validate you. But you don't see it, do you? You've become what Diogenes hated most, a man in chains. And the worst part? The chains aren't even real. They're invisible, built from fantasy, held together by the illusion that her love will fix you. This isn't strength. It's not romance.
It's not even hope. It's servitude. And you, my brother, are the willing servant. Diogenes once said, "I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance." He wore his flaws like armor. But you hide them like they're shameful. You sell a polished, edited version of yourself, hoping she'll love the image, the act, the performance. But real strength doesn't perform. Real strength doesn't need a script. It walks into the world as it is and says, take it or leave it. So why was Diogenes, a man with no home, no wealth, and no followers, still more powerful than kings? Because he couldn't be seduced. Not by gold, not by praise, not by beauty. He didn't chase because he had nothing to prove. And until you reach that place, until your self-respect is louder than your loneliness, you'll keep running. Running toward her, running from yourself. And you'll never stop until one day you realize she was never the goal. You were.
Let me tell you something no one else will. She doesn't admire your effort. She doesn't respect your persistence. She doesn't fall in love with how much you sacrifice. She might appreciate it. She might enjoy the attention, but she doesn't feel drawn to it. Because here's the bitter truth. What pulls a woman in, what makes her stay, isn't the man who follows her. It's the man she can't control. And the irony? The moment you stop chasing is the moment she notices you. Not because you're playing hard to get, not because you're running some manipulative strategy, but because the second a man finds peace in his own skin, when he no longer needs her to validate his worth, he becomes rare. He becomes real. Diogenes didn't need to be reflected back through anyone. He held up his own lantern and said, "I'm looking for a man." And still, the world couldn't give him one. Because most men, then and now, aren't men. They're actors, roles, costumes, waiting for a woman's gaze to make them feel like something. But the man who stops chasing, he's dangerous. Not because he's cruel, but because he can't be manipulated. He doesn't fear being alone. He doesn't need applause. He doesn't crumble when affection is withheld. That's what Diogenes wanted for you. Not to hate women, not to avoid love, but to stop building your identity around the hope of being loved. To stop outsourcing your confidence to a stranger's eyes. To stop believing that being chosen is the prize, when the real power is in choosing yourself. You think chasing her proves you're worthy of her, but really, it only shows you were never worthy of yourself. And that is the heartbreak that no one talks about. You chase because you think love will complete you. But real love begins the moment you stop needing to be completed. When you stop bleeding your power into every unanswered message. When you stop pouring your soul into someone who never promised to hold it. Diogenes didn't beg for anyone to hold him. He didn't wait for approval. He walked through life raw, exposed, free. Not because it was easy, but because it was true. So I'll ask again, when will you stop running? Because she isn't the destination. You are. You hear the word love, and your chest still tightens. Even after all the ghosting, the rejection, the heartbreak, You still believe that maybe somewhere out there, there's a woman who will finally make it all make sense. Someone who will rewrite the story. Someone who won't leave. But Diogenes would look straight into your soul and say, "You've become addicted to hope. And hope is the bait they use to tame you." That's why the chase hurts so much. Not because it fails, but because it gives you just enough to keep going. A smile here, a compliment there, a flirty midnight conversation that almost feels like something real, but never delivers. And you bite, again and again. Not because you're weak, but because you've been trained to chase breadcrumbs like they're feasts. Every time she gives you just a little, you imagine the whole. You build futures from fragments. You take interest and call it intimacy. You take attention and call it affection. And all the while, you keep showing up, bringing your best self, your honest self, your vulnerable self, and walking away emptier than before. But you call it love. You call it devotion. Diogenes would call it delusion. He once said, "I do not possess, therefore I am not possessed." Understand this. The more you invest in someone who hasn't earned it, the more you give her power over you. And not because she's trying to manipulate you, but because power doesn't need to be intentional to be real. She occupies your thoughts, your moods, your sense of self, just by being the one you can't stop thinking about. And while you're dreaming of her, what dreams inside you are dying? While you refresh her last seen status, what passions inside you go unseen? You give your energy to her mystery, her silence, her absence. But when will you give that attention to yourself? When will you confront the part of you that made this chase feel like purpose? Because this was never about her. It was about avoiding you. She was the mirage that let you ignore the desert inside. And when she disappears, the silence you feel, it's not hers. It's yours. Diogenes didn't run from silence. He lived in it. He laughed in it. He filled it with truth, with rebellion, with clarity. He barked like a dog to show people how ridiculous their performances were. And that's what you are when you chase. A performer. You become a character in a life you don't even recognize. You say you want her to see the real you, but you don't even see yourself. You want her to love you, but every time you bend, mute, soften yourself to be enough for her, you betray you. And when she leaves, you break. But not because she broke you, because you gave her something fragile and prayed she wouldn't drop it. But she was never meant to carry it. She was just passing by. That's what Diogenes understood. The world owes you nothing. Not comfort, not closure, not love. He lived like a ghost in plain sight, unimpressed, unafraid, unbothered. While other men put on rituals to impress, Diogenes was digging in the dirt, looking for something real. Not because he couldn't have more, but because he had lost his appetite for illusion. You still hunger for illusion. You still think that if you perform long enough, perfectly enough, she'll finally choose you. But the longer you perform, the more you forget who you really are. And one day, when she finally walks away, she won't be leaving you. She'll be leaving the mask. And you'll be left wondering, did I ever even exist? But you did. And you still do. And that's what Diogenes wanted you to see. Not in her eyes, not in her arms, in yourself, in your breath, in your being, because that is where freedom begins. There comes a moment in every man's life, maybe after one more ignored message or seeing her laugh in someone else's arms, when the ache becomes unbearable. Not sharp, not sudden, just dull, lingering. It's the realization that you were never choosing. You were just waiting to be chosen. And in that moment, you have a choice. Keep chasing shadows, or finally, stand still and meet yourself. Diogenes lived among dogs because dogs don't pretend. A dog doesn't chase what doesn't want to be caught. A dog doesn't base its value on rejection. He said the most beautiful thing in the world is freedom of speech. And here you are, biting your tongue, shrinking your truth, censoring yourself, all for a woman who may not even know what she wants. Diogenes would have pissed on that altar. He knew the truth. The man who doesn't chase is not alone. He is sovereign. The man who walks away is not rejected. He is choosing. To be unseen by her is not a punishment. It's an invitation to finally see yourself. So burn the script. Kill the chase. Let her go. Because once you stop chasing her, you'll realize you were never chasing her. You were chasing the version of you that never needed to chase anyone. And that man, he's been waiting for you this whole time.